This is the Tech Phantom with a special video for you. Today I am going to bring you my new and improved list of the best weapons in Dark Souls for PvE. There's probably no other game where the selection of your weapon is as important as in Dark Souls. That's because Dark Souls has the most responsive and efficient swordplay mechanics of any action RPG. Each weapon has its own set of moves, which, along with its weight, reach, damage rating, and players' tactics, dictates your playstyle during battles with in-game enemies or other players online. After much contemplation, testing, and yes, even some hand-wringing, I have come to the conclusion that my first top 10 list needed to be upgraded. The new bosses in the downloadable content are pretty much immune to magical and elemental damage, plus they attack relentlessly and in fast waves. Those changes have big implications for your build and your weapon selections. There are many weapons available in the game, but the upgrade system can be expensive in terms of souls, which is the game's currency, and it's also time consuming. So to make sure you don't waste either souls or time, I hereby present my list of the best weapons in Dark Souls to help you select the best weapon for your character. I created a weighted scoring system that includes the weapon's weight, attack rating, ability to be buffed via enchants or rings, require stats for wielding, and require stats for optimizing damage, capped at 50. I also added bonuses for attack speed, stun, reach, moveset, projectile attacks, and any static buffs like increasing magic defense or poison resistance that the weapon gives your character. The result is not only objective and based on data, but hopefully it takes into account those little idiosyncrasies that make our favorite weapons so special to us. Before we get started, there are 5 weapons that are worthy of honorable mentions. They are great weapons on their own right, but they just could not crack my top 10 list. The next best weapons in Dark Souls are the Reinforced Club. Pound for pound, one of the strongest weapons in Dark Souls. It can dish out heavy damage with puny stats and can stun and has bleed, but it's ultimately underpowered slightly and it lacks range. The Scythe, an obscure but powerful halberd with low stat requirements. Excellent for dex builds. Here's my most controversial omission, the Black Knight Halberd. It just barely missed my top 10 list. This powerful but heavy halberd was left out because its top end damage is limited and it does require high stats. The Zweihander is the last of the honorable mentions. It's a great tool for doling out massive amounts of damage, but it can be dangerously slow at times. So with that out of the way, let's get to the countdown and let's get to the top 10 weapons in Dark Souls. And number 10 is an obvious one because of the video, and that's Lucerne. Initially, this appears to be one of the weaker halberds. However, with high strength and dex, Lucerne becomes the strongest of the halberds, and it deals thrust damage exclusively. If you combine it with the Leah Ring, Power Within, and a weapon enchant, it becomes an absolute boss killer. Lucerne is easy to pick up in the catacombs and available in early game, but only once per playthrough. It is viable for both strength and dex builds. The one-handed and two-handed normal attacks are fast and difficult to parry. It may lack the reach of other halberds, but it still has the superior running attacks, which are especially deadly for boss fights, where the counter window is much greater than for regular enemies. My main and only gripe with Lucerne is the name. I mean, who names a weapon after a lake resort city from the famously pacifist country of Switzerland? Alternatives to Lucerne are the pickaxe or any other halberd, but really, nothing compares to my sweet Lucerne. Lucerne, the 10th best weapon in Dark Souls. Number 9, the Obsidian Greatsword. Thank you FromSoft for the Obsidian Greatsword. Finally, a suitable reward for a truly terrifying boss encounter with a very tricky tail cut. This sword will be your reward for chopping off Calameet's tail. And by the way, if you're having problems doing that, check out my channel for a video guide. But why would you want the Obsidian Greatsword? After all, as a dragon weapon, the Obsidian Greatsword has no scaling. Well, it does a flat-out beastly 480 physical damage when maxed out with dragon scale and wielded with 2 hands. Oh, and by the way, it's enchantable. This is a Drake sword on horror steroids, which can be buffed with Crystal Magic Weapon or Sunlight Blade. But wait, it also has an AoE 2-handed strong attack with decent hit radius that can knock back your enemy. The AoE is useful for finishing boss fights from a distance, and it's a lot of fun on PvP. The Obsidian Greatsword has the same moveset and reach of the Bastard Sword, but the stat requirements are right down pedestrian at only 20 strength and 16 dex. Did I mention that it can also stun? Alternates are the Claymore, the Bastard Sword, and the Great Lord Greatsword. But if you want an equally powerful Claymore, you're going to need 30 strength and 27 dex without the AoE attack. The Obsidian Greatsword is a must-have weapon for intelligence and faith builds, and it looks pretty badass to boot. Number 9, the Obsidian Greatsword. Number 8, the Boulder Scythe Sword. Yes, everyone's favorite straight sword makes its appearance in the 8th spot. Take an S-stock, combine it with the straight sword, give it some reach, add an incredibly rangy, fast and useful poking attack, and you get the perfect straight sword. The Boulder Scythe Sword is the ultimate dueling sword. It's fast, ignores armor with critical attacks, and it's actually very powerful. It is stronger than the much heavier washing pole. The Boulder Scythe Sword is lightning fast, allowing you to hit slower opponents or bosses and letting you time a counter when you're wearing the Leo ring. It's a dex weapon that was made for spelled sword builds. The Boulder Scythe Sword is one of the few weapons that will make you a better player because it is so much fun to swordblade with it. It's also very light. Even low endurance builds can string together several attacks in a row, each one adding up damage if enchanted with Crystal Magic Weapon or Sunlight Blade. If you have high poise, you can rain down multiple shots on your enemy and quickly cut them down to size. The only negative is that you need to farm for it, and the Boulder Scythe Sword is a rare drop from the Boulder Knights in the Undead Parish or Sense Fortress. But a little farming is a small price to pay for the best straight sword in the game, and the best option for a spelled sword build. Number 7, the Moonlight Greatsword. A no-brainer for intelligence builds, the Moonlight Greatsword has a rating of 480 magical damage at 50 intelligence. Additional stat requirements are puny at 16 strength and 10 dexterity. So, magical builds are free to concentrate on becoming powerful sorcerers, and they get a hard-hitting weapon at 32 intelligence. Most enemies and shields are susceptible to magic, making this sword one of the deadliest weapons in the game. The Moonlight Greatsword cannot be enchanted, so you can equip the Catalyst in the right hand, a useful option that allows blocking after casting a ranged spell. But who needs ranged spells? The Moonlight Greatsword moveset combines the normal attacks of a Claymore with magic projectiles on both the one-handed and two-handed strong attacks. The sword is very light, fast, and can stun. It seems to be actually a tad faster than the Claymore. To get the Moonlight Greatsword, you must get to Seat's middle tail, the longest one, and chop at it. Once you get it, you can upgrade it with Dragon Scale, and by that time of the game, you should be able to max it out right away. Magic builds should plan on a secondary weapon with physical or elemental damage for enemies that have high magic defense. Alternates include an enchanted Claymore or a bastard sword. Another option, if you can increase your strength and dex, is casting crystal magic weapon on the Obsidian Greatsword. But unlike the Moonlight Greatsword, the alternates lack range attacks and do not negate the magic defense penalty of the Crown of Dusk. Here is to the Moonlight Greatsword, the best weapon for magic builds in Dark Souls. Number 6, the Uchigatana. Dark Souls only has 4 katanas. They're all outstanding, but the best of the bunch is the Uchigatana. It is a drop from the undead male merchant, or you can buy it from Shiva of the East. This is a pure dex weapon that was made to be wielded with 2 hands. It's fast enough that you can score multiple hits on a boss during the recovery animations. The Uchigatana has an attack rating of 420 at 40 dex, so the damage quickly adds up. More importantly, this is a bleed weapon that will reward chain attacks with a satisfying blood-spurting animation that deals bonus damage. What really keeps me back, though, is the moveset. Duels are particularly fun and have a dance-like quality to them. The normal attacks have large hitboxes that hit up and to the side. The one-handed running attack and both strong attacks are powerful thrusts, extremely useful in tight corridors, and covering a lot of space in front of your character. The thrust damage means that the Uchigatana can be buffed with the Leo Ring. That, along with Crystal Magic Weapon or Sunlight Blade and the bleed bonus, makes the Uchigatana a killer even in NG+. The Uchigatana does need to be repaired frequently because of its low durability, and the rangy, strong two-handed attack is slow, but it does provide a very graceful way to end the boss fight. Overall, those are minor complaints and do not detract from the Uchigatana, Dark Souls' most elegant weapon. Number 5 and number 4, the Great Club and the Large Club. I'm going to talk about these two weapons together because they're in a virtual dead heat for the 5th and the 4th position in this countdown. Sometimes it feels good to pummel your enemies into the ground. Either of these clubs will let you bully even the baddest bosses in the game. Both weapons are very similar to each other. The Great Club a bit heavier and slightly stronger, but I give the edge to the Large Club because of its poison damage. The movesets are the same except for the two-handed strong attacks. Make sure your build has poise because the normal attacks are slow, and you want to make sure that you finish the animation because when the attacks hit, they will stun and leave your opponent completely helpless for a follow-up. The overhead running attacks are outstanding, hitting fast, hard, and with immense hitboxes. These are pure strength weapons with high attack ratings of 674 and 648 at 50 strength. The damage is on par with the strongest weapons in the game, but without the weight penalty. I recommend adding endurance to your build since the attacks do consume a little bit of stamina, but better yet, you want to add endurance to enable fast rolling. And let me tell you guys, fast rolling with these big clubs is a lot of fun, and it's made possible by their lighter weight relative to the other great hammers, great axes, or ultra large swords. The Great Club and the Large Club will absolutely mow down bosses when buffed with an enchant or power within, even after multiple playthroughs of the game. The Great Club and the Large Club are the best heavy weapons in Dark Souls. It's clobbering time. And now for the top 3 weapons in the game. They share many things in common. They're light. They have a very, very good moveset. And they can be used by just about any build. They make an excellent option as a divine weapon, an enchanted weapon, an elemental weapon, and when upgraded in the normal path, they do a lot of physical damage. No matter how I tweak my list, these three weapons kept coming back to the top. A strong case can be made for each one, and the final decision will probably come down to personal preference. I know that it did for me. But this is my list, and I had to rank them in some order. So here are the top 3 weapons in Dark Souls. Number 3, the Claymore. In spite of the slight nerf in the latest patch, the Claymore is still one of the best weapons in the game. It is available only once per playthrough, but can be had in early game. As soon as you reach Lucerne, you should make a beeline to the bridge guarded by the Hellkite Dragon to pick up this greatsword. It's viable for all builds due to its low required will stats. It scales with both strength and dexterity, and has an attack rating of 460 at 25 strength and 25 dex. The moveset has a thrusting one-handed strong attack that can be buffed with the Leo ring. The running attacks sweep out a large arc in front of the player. The two-handed normal attack is fast and can stun. This attack is deadly when used as a combo along with high poise if you like trading blows with an enemy. Alternates to the Claymore are the Bastard Sword and the Great Lord Greatsword. They might be slightly stronger, but they lack the reach and the thrust damage of the superior Claymore. The Claymore is the number 3 weapons in Dark Souls and the best sword in Dark Souls. Number 2, the Gargoyle's Halberd. FromSoft trolled us by describing it as a perfectly standard bronze halberd without any special power. The emphasis is on the word perfect. The Gargoyle's Halberd is one of the strongest halberds with improved range. The attack rating is 469 at 40 dex. But it's excellent for any build because it scales with strength, and it's also one of the most powerful elemental weapons in the game. With added strength, it outmuscles the mighty Black Knight Halberd at less than half the weight, but it's enchantable. The running attacks are very fast overhead chops with extended reach. The Black Knight Halberd begs to be wielded with both hands, and few enemies will be left standing after a two-handed 3-hit combo, which is also deceptively fast and rangy. The Gargoyle's Halberd is a rare drop from the Belfry Gargoyles and a guaranteed drop from the Enerlunda Gargoyles if not already in your arsenal by then. In addition to being an offensive powerhouse, this weapon will boost your defenses with a 25% reduction in poison and bleed buildup. All in all, the Gargoyle's Halberd comes pretty close to perfection in my book, and it's the number 2 weapon in Dark Souls. Well, there's only one spot left, and just like the Highlander said, there can be only one. The best weapon in Dark Souls is the Great Scythe. In my humble opinion, the choice for best weapon is an obvious and easy one. The Great Scythe combines the high damage of a halberd with the most unique and the best moveset in the game. And it adds some bleed damage to boot. This is a pure dex weapon available in early game by venturing into the catacombs. At 40 dex, it has a massive attack rating of 483. The normal attacks are moderately fast, but will build up your enemy's bleed meter. The running attacks are absolutely the best in the game, incredibly fast and covering an amazing amount of ground. Where the Great Scythe really shines is in boss battles. The two-handed strong attack quickly propels you forward and cuts down a giant swath of space in front of you. More importantly, it can be chained for a combo which will dissolve huge chunks of the boss's life bar, especially when the bleed damage kicks in. The Life Hunt Scythe is the only worthy alternate with higher bleed damage, but it's shorter and cannot be enchanted. If you don't believe what I have said, take the Great Scythe for a spin in your next playthrough. I am sure you will agree with my conclusion that the Great Scythe is the best weapon in Dark Souls. Well guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is the Tech Phantom signing off.